Howdy, Immortalium here, and today I'm going to be reviewing Insufficient Direction by Moyoco Anno. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Insufficient Direction, it is basically a semi-autobiographical manga about the relationship between Moyoco Anno, the mangaka, and her husband, the very famous Hideaki Anno. If you're unfamiliar with Hideaki Anno, he is creator of the Evangelion franchise, as well as the founder of two animation studios, Studio Gainax and Studio Kara. But what's probably a little less known about him is the fact that he is an absolutely massive otaku, and this manga kind of plays around with like how that impacts their lives. So let's get started with this manga. So what is the story of Insufficient Direction? It follows two characters, Rompers, who is portrayed as a baby, and is the kind of representation of Moyoco Anno, and Director Kun, who is this kind of unkempt, slovenly man, and he is representing Hideaki Anno. And they've just moved in together. He is a massive otaku, and she's a little bit of an otaku. Like, she's not anywhere near as much of an otaku as he is. And he's kind of like, I'll teach you all about being an otaku. And that's kind of the main story. Like, it's quite episodic. There isn't any kind of like overarching story beyond the fact that they're just learning to live together. It's told episodically over the course of 21 chapters, plus a short chapter kind of acting as a bit of an epilogue. And it's a comedic manga. It's quite funny, but one thing that this manga is very famous for is the fact that it makes a lot of references to various things. There is about 30 pages of annotations at the back explaining all of the various references that they make to anime, to manga, to tokusatsu series, etc, etc. And speaking of tokusatsu series, something that quite caught me off guard when I read this manga was the fact that they mentioned Ultraman and Kamen Rider so much. If you're unfamiliar with those shows, they're tokusatsu series, as I mentioned before, which is basically kind of live-action, special effects-driven shows or movies. In the case of Ultraman and Kamen Rider, they're quite superhero-oriented. And I would say that a lot of anime and manga fans in the West were probably quite unfamiliar with those franchises. So to see them referenced so heavily and so often in this manga will definitely be off-putting to some people. There's also a lot of references to 70s and 80s anime and manga. That's when Hideaki Anno would have been growing up, when he would have been getting into anime and manga, when he was getting inspired to make his shows and his studios. I'd say that a lot of people, like even I, who I would consider myself quite familiar with a lot of 70s and 80s anime and manga series compared to a lot of other anime fans. Even I quite often didn't get a lot of the references that they were making, and I found myself going to those annotation pages quite frequently. Now, even so, I did still find this manga quite funny, and there are actually a few chapters where it's more about the kind of incidentals of their lives. It's not so much about the otaku aspect of it, it's more about the way they're living together. So there are actually a few chapters where you don't actually need to know the references they're making in order to get the jokes. They'll come across quite fine. With regards to the artwork, the artwork of Insufficient Direction is quite a drastic change compared to her previous manga. In her previous manga, Sakuran and In Close Called Fat, she had quite a detailed, cartoony look, kind of bordering a bit on realism, but still quite stylized. In the case of Insufficient Direction, she's gone towards chibi / super deformed art style, which I think is very charming. It is quite pleasant to look at. And there are even some bits where when they make references to specific series, she'll actually emulate the art style for those series to kind of land the joke. There is a lot of great stuff here with the artwork. I'm very pleased with it. I know that it won't be everyone's cup of tea. It is quite a sharp change towards her previous art style, and some people might find that art off-putting. But in general, I quite liked this art style. With regards to Vertical's treatment of this manga, there's quite a bit to dig into here. So first of all, if I take my trusty Yatsuba, you will see that it's quite big compared to a typical tankobon size. The paper quality is also quite nice, with some nice contrast between the whites and the blacks. In addition, as I mentioned before, there are 30 pages of annotations. There's a huge amount of information there. If you're an otaku and you want to learn more about otaku culture in Japan, this is an excellent kind of educational material. I was very impressed with the annotations. There's a lot of good information in there. In addition, there are two interviews regarding Hideaki Anno. One kind of discussing his marriage with Moyoco Anno, and another kind of discussing her work and how he's portrayed in it, what he likes about her work. And they're very good reads, so they're very nice additions to this collection. I was very happy with this presentation from Vertical. It's very hard to imagine how they could have topped this release. So overall, what are my thoughts on Insufficient Direction? I quite liked it, I quite enjoyed it. I thought it was very funny, I thought it was quite endearing and charming. I quite liked how they handled the relationship between the two of them. It feels very real, at the same time very funny. However, the fact that it makes so many references to so many obscure series will definitely be off-putting to a lot of people. I can imagine that the art style will put off some people too. So if you're interested in Hideaki Anno, or you're just interested in seeing like the relationship between husband and wife in the veins of like their otaku-ness, I think you will quite enjoy this manga. But for those people who maybe want their references kind of more modern and more well-known, you might be off-put by this, and so I would probably recommend you skip this. But personally, I quite enjoyed it, and I do recommend it. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and bye-bye.